of our press conference, Thursday press conference ahead of the Chinese Grand Prix. Joining us for this section, we have Kimi Räikkönen, Carlos Sainz and Antonio Giovinazzi. Kimi, let's start with you. You finished fourth in Melbourne, despite a few handling problems during the race. How confident are you of challenging at the front this weekend?
Well, I mean, I think we learn a lot, we understand quite a bit, and kind of everything came a bit late, and obviously then we don't get a very good result. I mean, it was, if I compare the last few years, was still, far from disaster. So yes, we had some difficulties, and we know that we could have afterwards be much faster, but we still, as a team, did a pretty solid job, and yeah, I mean, we got some points, and new place, new circuit, so let's see.
Sebastian said a moment ago that he thinks Mercedes are still favourites coming into this weekend. Is that how you see it, or will the rain mix things up?
Well, I don't know who will be best or not. I mean, we haven't driven a single lap with the new cars here, so who knows? I think we have had pretty good package and feeling with the car, whichever place we've been, and but it's pointless to start guessing who's going to be front, who's not. We will see over the weekend, and Sunday we are all a little bit more smarter. So.
You haven't driven the new cars here, but you have driven yours in the wet when the track was artificially watered in the Barcelona test. How was it then?
Yeah, it wasn't like proper wet. It's always very hard for to make the same conditions if it's raining like it is now outside, or just dumping water on the circuit. So it's a bit tricky to get the best idea. Plus, we have different tires here for the wet, so it's a bit unknown. But it's the same for everybody. And usually, if the car is good on dry, it's not too bad in the wet either. So there's. We have to wait and see, but I think any condition we should be pretty okay. So.
Thank you, Kimi. Let's move on to Antonio. Congratulations on a tremendous first Grand Prix in Melbourne a couple of weeks ago. How do you reflect on it now?
Yeah, thank you. It was a special weekend. It was my first F1 Grand Prix. Dream came true. Since I was a kid, the dream was to arrive in F1, and to drive there was a fantastic experience, fantastic weekend. It was a quite late call on Saturday morning, but I really enjoy everything I did from FP3 to quali to race. So I will never forget. And of course, to be here now already, start from FP1 will be a lot more easy, and also to have already experience from Melbourne will make everything a lot more easy. But will be different race weekend. Weather look also difficult, so will be maybe wet, and to have also some experience in a wet condition will be good. So what I can do is to do my best, and I hope the result can be good like Melbourne.
What's your deal with the Sauber team? How many races are you going to do for them?
I'm the third driver of Ferrari. Now we just think race by race. So I had a call here on Tuesday, and I'm here to race with Sauber. But already from next week I will be back in red with the Scuderia Ferrari. But then we will see in the future.
So no news on Bahrain yet?
Not yet.
And physically, how tough was the Australian Grand Prix for you?
Of course, I keep training in the winter, so I arrived there quite prepared. To be honest, yeah, maybe in the end of the race was not easy, but expected more difficult. But yeah, here I think will be a little bit tough because the track have a lot longer corner, so for the neck will be no easy. But I still training last week, so I hope can be okay also here.
Thank you, Antonio. Thank you. Carlos, coming on to you. A good result for Toro Rosso in Melbourne, both cars in the points, yourself 8th. How confident are you of maintaining that form going forward?
Yeah, I think it was a really good weekend for the team after a very tough winter. I think we were the team to do only more laps than McLaren, so it was an extremely tough winter in Barcelona for us, and to turn up to the first race and put both cars in the points and in Q3 was a success, definitely. So it just shows the car has a lot of potential. and that we can only get better from here. And yeah, Shanghai will be a bit tougher because it has a bit of a longer straight than Melbourne, but I think we can be happy with the first race and we can start from there.
Can you give us your thoughts on the current Renault engine and how it compares to the 2-year-old Ferrari that the team used last year?
Well, for me, it feels great because last year was very painful. No, the second half of the season, we were something like 15 to 16, 17 kph down on the straight compared to our direct competitors. Suddenly, to start the first race and see yourself just 7 to 8 kph back, even 6, 5 in some cases was really good news and something grateful to experience. But definitely we are, as you see, still a bit one step behind the leaders in that regard or the best engines in that regard. So I have the trust that Renault are working hard on that upgrade package coming to Canada, and that can give us the extra 3 or 4 or 5 kph that can put us back in a normal, in a standard top speed deficit.
Thank you, Carlos. Kimi, just coming back to you, a lot has been made of the physicality of this new breed of Formula One car. How does it compare to the cars that you drove in the mid-noughties, 2005, 2004? Are they more physical than back then?
Well, obviously it's very hard to compare. First of all, it's a long time ago. And it depends a lot on the different circuits, conditions and everything, and how the tires will last on the race. If they obviously last better, you can push more on. But I think it's the key point is that when we do more running, more racing, you get used to it, and it's not a big deal. Probably on the start of the year when you do the first test, it's a bit a surprise, but that's how it's usually always after the winter. And at least in Melbourne, it wasn't, it didn't feel any different. But it's amazing how quickly you get used to all the things, and it feels absolutely normal. So I'm sure some races will be more harder than last year, but that's how it is.
Thank you, Kimi. Well, let's open the press conference up to the floor. Please remember to give your name and publication.
Fred Ferrer, L'Équipe. Question to Antonio Giovinazzi. Do you think if you score 1 point this weekend, it would change your career?
It's a good question. Of course, we will change, but it will be important for me, for my mind. Of course, the result also we had in Melbourne, P12 was a good result. And to improve, I think the result from Melbourne is to score a point. Will be difficult, but will try my best and score a point.
Thank you. Next question. Name and publication, please.
My name is Karen with Top Driver. Question for Antonio. How would you describe your driving style? Thank you.
My driving style? I don't know. I'm quite calm. I think it's normal driving style. And my strong part, I think, in GP2 was the race to save the tires. So in Melbourne, I had not much to experience. I had not much experience, so maybe I was too slow in the beginning of the run. But of course, here I will improve. To have already FP1, FP2 will be good to see how is the degradation, to have feeling with the car. So I hope I can do a better job in the race here.
Thank you. Next question.
Michael Laminato, Class Act Media. Question to all three. There's a lot being made about the difficulty of overtaking this season. There was only maybe a handful of passing manoeuvres in Australia. Do you think the new regulations will make attempting an overtake maybe a bit more of a braver thing? Do you have to put more on the line now to pass a car? And will that contribute to the spectacle of racing?
Kimi, could you start, please?
I think every circuit is different. Obviously, Melbourne has always been difficult to overtake, and of course, when you have maybe the fastest car and the slowest car, you get around it very easily. But I think in China here, usually overtaking is a lot easier. So I think we have to wait and see how it is in here, and then see if it's more harder or less easier than we expected. But I think when there's two fast cars against each other, it doesn't matter if it's last year or this year. It's always going to be hard to get past. And the other factor is that there's a less tire drop-off. So obviously, after the pit stops, there is a much smaller difference between the speed on the cars because of that. So all those things in the end makes a difference.
Carlos, anything to add?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a bit more difficult compared to last year, but it's a price I think it's worth paying for. Having these cars a lot faster and the tires that is allowing you to push a lot more. At least me or myself, I am enjoying a lot more on the race. But yeah, also if you would put one-stop races last year, I don't think you would have seen many overtaken. So I think it's more dependent on pit stops than on the cars of this year.
Antonio, how much harder is it to overtake in Formula One compared to GP2?
To be honest, it's quite different. GP2 we have all similar car, only one strategy, only one pit stop. So I think GP2 was a good category to overtake. But to be honest, I think here in Shanghai with the longer straight will be easy than Melbourne. But to be honest, I had not much experience compared last year, so what they say is not much to take apart. So GP2 was good. F1, I have not much experience, so maybe after this race I can tell you better.
Thank you. Next question.
Veli Miljukic, Autofocus. I have a question for Kimi. When we look at the race today, how much do you spend your concentration on taking care about tires, about fuel consumption, and about pure racing?
Well, obviously it depends a lot in the condition-wise and the circuit that we go in. Some circuits you have to do some fuel saving, some not at all, and that obviously plays a big part of on those races. And it's the same with the tires. Some circuits are much better better for tires that they don't degrade so much, and you can't really say that every place is the same. Each place is a special place and it's different than previous race or the next race. So some days you can go full out for a whole race, and some you have to take care of a lot of things, or maybe if you have an issue, then obviously that creates even another story. So to really go full out is not awful lot during the year. Like if you take the whole race, it's not often, but obviously it's a nice feeling for all of us, I think, when we can really go full speed all the time and not really worry about tires or fuel or other guys, and just try to race against it. So.
You have to take care about fuel consumption?
Sometimes it depends on the circuit, obviously. I think it's same for all the cars. Yes, between the engines and cars, there's some small differences, but I'm sure the places that we have to fuel save, the others will also. So it's the same.
Thank you. Next question.
Andreas Haupt, Automotor and Sport. A question to Antonio. Did you set yourself any specific goals, targets for this weekend? For example, beating Marcus, or is it just about relaxing for you?
Just like you say, maybe be relaxing. After enjoy, yeah, of course, and make more experience. After one race, it's not enough to set a target, so I need to just drive and take experience and do my best, and then we'll see the result on Sunday.
Thank you. Next question.
Mark Surer, Sky Germany. A question for Kimi. In Barcelona, you seem to do easy the fastest time. It didn't work out in Melbourne in the race. Are the cars more difficult to set up, this year's cars?
No, in the race I did fastest time. I was only one lap and a bit late, but no, I don't think it's any more difficult to set up this year than any year. But I don't also think that it's never going to be easy to find the best setup. Yes, sometimes you might end up when you go in a new circuit that it's just happened to be right, and you just fine tune it always a little bit. But for many different small reasons, we never really got it right, and it just makes a big difference, at least in circuits like Melbourne, with the corners that they are. That if it's not right, you're gonna give awful lot lap time in a few places, and that was really the end story on it. But obviously, in the beginning of the year, you have a little bit more unknown stories from testing. Still, you never have time to do all kind of things, and plus you do testing in one place, so you kind of end up being in a similar area with the car all testing long. So going in a new place is, we have to be more smart, and obviously we have much more experience now, and I think it should be fine now. So.
Thank you. Next question.
Thank you. Last one over there.
Sorry, just one more. Michael Lamonato from Class Act. A question to Antonio. It's rare for a reserve driver to get a racing opportunity. How are you approaching this race compared to last race, in the sense that are you treating it like you're like a CV for a race drive next weekend, or is it next year, or is it really just about you filling in the race seat and getting the job done for Sauber?
Yeah, I'm like I said before, I'm the third driver of Ferrari, and now I'm back here in China. I will, of course, I have more time to prepare the race already from FP1 compared to Melbourne, and yeah, I just need to take experience, do a lot of laps, and of course about next year or this year is still too early to speak. Now I'm really blessed to stay here, to drive here, so I need to say thanks to Scuderia Ferrari and Sauber F1 for this opportunity, and I need just drive and make experience.
Thank you, gentlemen. A full transcript of this press conference will be available shortly at FIA.com.